Hey guys, it's Mrs. Olenichek, and I'm going to walk you through some of the data analysis and using Excel to analyze these numbers. So the first thing we're going to want to do is select the data that we want to look at. So we're trying to compare our non-survivors to our survivors. So you'll notice that they have a description of what all of these headings mean and how to tell which are the survivors versus the non-survivors. So if I look at the last year here, I can see that anybody who died in 1977 did not survive the drought of 1977. So all of these finches here, up until this point, did not survive, so these would be your non-survivors. So I'm going to select all of that data. So I just highlighted it, and then I'm gonna copy, so Control C, and go over to this little plus button and open up a new sheet. And then I'm just gonna paste that data here, so Control V. This just makes it easier for me to analyze the data. I have it kind of separated out. For this particular exercise, we don't really need the band or the species or the first adult year. We're not using that data, and so I'm just gonna delete. I don't know what I did there, sorry. I'm just going to try to delete that data. How do I do that? Delete all that data. There we go. So I just highlighted it and hit the delete button. This last year, these are all my survivors. So let's see. Really need the year there. Let me delete that, but I may put survivor or non-survivor. And then let's see if I could get it to copy that. So I'm going to get that little thing right there on the corner, and I'm going to drag all the way down just for fun. And I'll label all of that non-survivor. Look, so it copied it all in there for me. If I want to be really fancy and just move everything over, I can copy this. So I want the last year. Let's see. I'm going to move last year, weight, wing length, tarsus. So I'm going to be analyzing that data. Let me just cut and paste this and move it over. So Control X, and then I'm going to come over here and hit Control V. I don't need beak length data for this particular activity, so I'm just going to delete that. I do want the beak depth, so I'm going to cut that and paste it over here. And then width, I don't need either, so I'm just going to delete that. So these are all my non-survivors. And this just was simplifying the data set so that I don't have to look at all of this stuff all at once. I'm now going to go and get my survivor data. So again, I'm going to just cut and paste, and I'm going to just start over here to make my life slightly easier with that last year. And so see, these all lived to 1978 and 1979, 1980, 1982. So these guys all survived the drought. So this is my survivor data set. Again, I'm going to copy and paste, and I'm going to paste those guys over here so they're slightly separated so I don't get confused. And I'm going to paste them in the second row, so that I can then go back and copy the headings over here so that I don't get confused about what data I've got. And again, this is all formatting. I'm just cutting and pasting and trying to make this somewhat more manageable because this is a lot of numbers. I could have just cut and paste each column. So again, Control C for copy. Go back to sheet 1. I'm going to go over here, Control V. I need the weight, the wing, the tarsus. I don't need length, so I'm going to delete that. And I don't need width, so I'm going to delete that. but I do need depth. So I'm gonna cut this and paste it here just to make it pretty. And again, I can replace that year because I don't really need the years for this particular analysis. So I'm going to cut that. So I'm just going to highlight and hit delete. And then I'm going to write survivor. And see this little thing on the edge? If I grab that and pull it all the way down, it will fill in with survivor. It'll just copy it for me. Now, I want to do a few different things with this data. The first thing I want to calculate for these values is going to be the mean. So I'm going to label mean here, just so I know what's going over here in these cells. And I also want to calculate standard deviation. So I'm going to put SD for standard deviation. And so I know that the values I put here will all be means, and the values I put here will be my standard deviations. And I'm going to do the same thing over here, just so it's nice and neat. All right, so now I'm ready to actually do some calculations. So I want to calculate the average for all of these masses, because these are going to be the masses, right? Yeah, that's the weight, which is the mass in grams, for all of the non-surviving finches. This gives me an idea of the average weight of non-surviving finches. So let's see. There's a couple ways I could do this. The way I like to do it is I click on the box where I want my data to go, and then I come over here to f of x, insert function. I'm pretty sure you could go to insert up here. No, maybe not, maybe formulas. Insert function. So I could go to insert functions under the formulas tab, or I could just click on this little f of x here. And that's going to give me a list of functions. So I'm going to type in average, A-V-E-R-A-G-E. So I use it a lot, so it's already down there, but just in case you need to find it. And then I'm going to click or double click on average. Now it's already filling in numbers for me, but I want to tell it exactly what numbers I want to average. So if I look at my data set, so I want to start with this Finch, so I click there, and now I'm going to scroll down and highlight all of the values that I want it to average or get the mean for. So there we go. So that is the data I want averaged, and I click OK, and there we go. It did all that work for me. So if you look up here, this is kind of how you could type it in. So see how it says equal, so that tells you, it tells Excel that you want it to do something. Average is the function that I want it to perform, and then I put parentheses, this is where I want it to start, colon, and this is where I want it to end. So I want it to average all of the numbers bound in cells B2 through B51. And so I could come over here and instead of hitting f of x, go equals, just type it in, average, A-V-E-R-A-G-E, and then put my parentheses. And so here, because I'm in column C, I want C2, because that's where my first value is. If I am reading this right, let me just check. Yeah, C2, and then colon through, let's see, where do I want it to end? C51, so C51. And then I close parentheses and hit enter, and it should calculate that for me as well. So those are two different ways of getting Excel to calculate the average for me. So now I've calculated the average weight and wing length for the non-surviving finches. I'm going to go through and do the same for the other measurements. So I'm going to do my little f of x. I'm going to click on average, and then I'm going to highlight what I want. So let me just make sure. So this is Tarsus. I want to start with that one. And I want to end here. Okay. See? Not so bad. average, okay. And I want E2 through E51. Oh, it already knows what I want. Here we go. So now I've got the mean for all of those data sets. I'm going to come over to my survivors and I'm going to do the exact same thing. So I want average, okay, and J2 through J51. Let me make sure that's what I want. Yep, I want weight J2 through J51. Now yours doesn't have to look exactly the same as mine. You may have different column headings, but this is how you would get it to calculate regardless. So just make sure that the letters and numbers of the cells match up with yours. Okay, so now that I have those values, let's talk about standard deviation. Standard deviation, just the same kind of idea. I want Excel to calculate something for me. In this case, it's standard deviation, so I get an idea of the spread of my data. So I'm just going to come over here, click on Insert Function, and I'm going to search STDEV. Go. Now there's lots of different ways that you can calculate standard deviation. I'm just going to go with the basic STDEV, standard deviation. It's compatible with different forms of Excel, so if you have an older version, this will work just the same. And now here's where it gets a little bit tricky. I want the standard deviation of all of my values for all of my finches for their mass. I do not want to include the mean in my standard deviation. I just want to look at raw data. If I add the mean, then I'm going to kind of mess up my data. So I want to select everything except the mean, because Excel doesn't know. If I select that value, it's going to think that that's an actual finch that's part of the data set. So you're going to select everything. Again, it would be your B2 through B51 and hit OK. Sweet. So I've got my standard deviation for that. And let me come over here and I'm going to select the box below. So now I want to figure out the standard deviation for the survivors for their mass. So I can insert function, standard deviation, and again I'm going to select the data set that I want it to analyze for me. Oh, no mean in there. Okay. So if you see my data here, it's giving me all these decimal places, and I want it to be consistent. I want the same number of decimal places everywhere. So I'm going to select all these boxes right here, and I'm going to come up and click on data. Is that where I'm going to click? Nope. I'm going to go home. All right, I'm going to go to my home screen, and then I'm going to click on this little extension under number, and it's going to open up. It's going to open up something. It's going to open up this little box that says Format Cells, hopefully, in a second. Come on. It's trying. It's taking its time. Let me try that again. My computer's getting a little weird. All right. Here we go. So again, I just went and I clicked on that little button. This time it decided to work. And then we're going to click on number, and I want 2 decimal places. And so I just click OK, and now it's going to round everything to 2 decimal places. So that's how you kind of get your mean and standard deviation for the surviving and non-surviving Finch data. I'll make you guys another video showing you how to graph that. But go through and make sure you get the mean for all of these and the standard deviation for all of these. All right, bye.